This is CBC Here and Now.
I mean, I guess if there are time constraints, if that's the concern, I understand. Yeah, but I would normally say just leave it in. Why not?
As graduates cross the stage at convocation, a controversial break with tradition, ditching Newfoundland's ode.
Last summer to this summer, we've seen the traffic rebound well, actually above pre-pandemic numbers, which is really positive.
After a few years of slow marine traffic, Marine Atlantic has ferried in tens of thousands of people this summer. We'll hear from the head of the Crown Corporation. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. The cleanup continues in Basques on the island's southwest coast in the wake of last month's devastating post-tropical storm. Fiona wiped out homes and neighborhoods. Here and Now's Troy Turner has this update as people continue to pick up the pieces.
For Austin Taylor and his family, the waiting has been hard. Waiting for answers, waiting for help. He's been out of his home since Fiona tore through his neighborhood last month. The house stands, but it's been condemned, so he and his family won't be returning.
It's very hard. We've worked hard for 28 years just to own it. And within the last 2 years we've owned it. We're doing more money, spending more for get renovations done. All of a sudden you're left with nothing.
Taylor says it's been hard on everyone, but especially his adult daughter, who has a rare genetic condition that causes cognitive and physical impairment.
She wanted to go home, and where she was handicapped, you couldn't explain to her that she couldn't go home no more. She would just rip out of her house, put in the car, and took away. And she can't understand why she can't go back.
Taylor has a place to live for the winter, but he's still waiting on answers about insurance and financial relief to see where he goes from there. Todd Charlton's street was also smacked hard by the storm. Houses and sheds across the street from him swept out to sea. His house spared with no serious damage. He says he's staying despite the crumbling road in front of him.
I'm not moving. They can fix the street. And there's a little bit of dirt filled in the holes and a little more gravel and as long as we don't have another hurricane.
Overflowing dumpsters line the streets. Tattered homes left barely standing. Piles of debris collected in neighborhoods. Many say it's a different town.
Before, you used to be able to go to a grocery store and say, "Hi, how you doing? And how's your day going?" And now when you go to a grocery store, people just merely nod or shake their head. Everybody's mentality has been altered. This is something that's impacted everybody, not just people who lost their homes.
Renee Roy says the reaction of people in the weeks following Fiona has been split.
People are looking for anything now to try and lift other people's spirits. Anything that they see or they can do to try and help someone out, or even just tell a funny story at a coffee shop. I've seen that. And at the same time, I've also heard a lot of division over, the allocation of monies and what do we do next and where is the provincial government. You hear both sides.
Next steps are something the mayor has been working on, hour after hour, every day since the waves tore his town apart.
Our lives are built in our homes. And to lose that, it's not only one thing to lose it, but to go through a traumatic experience that you went through, to lose or be displaced from your home and not knowing if your home yet is safe for you to return to, or if you ever will, is a hard pill to swallow for anybody.
Button says the town has been working on cleanup of several areas and lending expertise to the provincial response team.
I know today is pretty bleak. I know it's been a lot of stuff has been shattered in one's life, but I'm figuring that tomorrow we'll get to a brighter day and we'll get there at some point here, but we are going to get there.
While it's been weeks since homes were torn from their foundation from the ocean and neighborhoods were ravaged by this storm, there's still yet to be a lot of answers as to what will happen next. The town, it says, is working with all levels of government to find those answers soon. Troy Turner, CBC News, Basques.
Well, there's another Fiona update to tell you about, and that involves the money being raised to help people. The Red Cross is distributing the $30 million the province announced in relief funding. So far, $1.5 million have been handed out to people, and the provincial government says more is going out each day. Of the $500,000 put aside for towns, $147,000 has been approved. That money pays for town staff to work overtime, to hire workers to deliver the funding, and to clean up debris. This Sunday, October 23rd, is the last day money donated to the Red Cross for Fiona cleanup will be matched dollar for dollar by the Government of Canada. Well, MUN took another step towards inclusion today at its convocation ceremonies, but some are wondering if it's actually a step in the right direction. For the first time, Memorial University of Newfoundland skipped the Ode to Newfoundland. Our Ryan Cook has that story.
It had all the makings of a typical convocation ceremony. Robes, those hats, 3 hours of excitement. They even played O Canada. But the Ode to Newfoundland, this year, gone from the lineup. The university says the provincial anthem was skipped to make the ceremonies more inclusive. After all, it's the Ode to Newfoundland and not Labrador.
If you're from Labrador and you're in the audience and you're listening to an ode to Newfoundland, you may not feel that same source of pride and inclusion. And so our efforts are really, one of our values is actually inclusion and equity, and we're working towards that, and so this was one step.
For those who sat through it, their thoughts about the ode were rather mixed.
I'd say leave it in terms of inclusivity. I feel like if it's going to ruffle feathers, if it's left out, then what's the point?
I like how there was a land acknowledgement, so honestly, if there's a land acknowledgement and not an ode to Newfoundland, I'm okay with that. As long as it's inclusive, that's all that matters to me.
Frankly, I don't agree. And I don't agree because, this is the University of Newfoundland. Newfoundland has its own, culture and traditions, and I think it's okay to honor that heritage.
I love the ode, but it was changing times, changing place, and I'm happy with that. But I'll go sing it myself outside afterwards.
The song is often sung by kids in school, or at sporting events like Brad Gujou's famous Briar Win, or for royal visits. But it won't be used for MUN convocations anymore. Unless the lyrics could get a refresh?
I think that's a question for the provincial government.
So we asked them.
That's not something that's been discussed in any discussions that I've had. The ode is a long-standing cultural tradition in this province, and quite frankly, I'm disappointed to hear that MUN would drop the ode.
For more than 70 years, there's been some version of this. The tradition will continue with the speeches, the performances, these hats, but the fate of the ode may hang on the province coming up with a new version. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, business at Marine Atlantic roared back to life this summer, driven by come-home year celebrations and people's urge to travel following 2 tumultuous years of the pandemic. And as Terry Roberts reports, work on a new ferry is starting to gain momentum.
Here's the man in charge of Marine Atlantic, walking a little lighter these days.
Last summer to this summer, we've seen the traffic rebound well.
This summer's passenger numbers are in, and they're impressive. Just under 160,000 passengers used the ferry service in July and August. That's nearly 20,000 more than the corporation recorded during the same period in 2019, the year before society was upended by the pandemic.
From last summer to this summer, we've seen the traffic rebound well, actually above pre-pandemic numbers, which is really positive.
The increase in business is being linked to the relaxing of public health restrictions, a pent-up demand for travel, and a year-long come-home-year celebration promoted by the provincial government. That surge in traffic, one of the highlights of Marine Atlantic's latest annual report. The ferry service between Nova Scotia and the island of Newfoundland is an essential link to the rest of Canada. A fleet of 4 vessels are used on the daily service between North Sydney and Port aux Basques, and the seasonal service to Argentia. But in a few years, a new ship will enter. The keel for this new 200-meter ship is expected to be laid in China next month, which means either the Atlantic Vision or the Leif Erikson will retire.
We will probably stay a 4-vessel fleet. What the 4 vessels will look like, we know for certain 3 of them. The 4th one will be decided over the next few months.
A contract is scheduled to be awarded in the coming weeks for a new administrative building in Port aux Basques. But don't expect this new building to revive the long-running debate over the corporation's headquarters.
The headquarters for Marine Atlantic are clearly defined in St. John's.
While advances are being made, Marine Atlantic has a problem, a big shortage of workers.
Probably something that we didn't count on as significantly as we thought it would be is that 2 years of pandemic, numbers were down significantly, and a lot of people have moved on to other careers or retired, and we're still trying to fill those voids.
Despite the uptick in business, Marine Atlantic is far from self-sufficient. The federal subsidy for last year, $131 million. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Good evening, everyone. Let's talk about your weather on the way and take a look at some of our weather headlines. So tonight we're going to have a clearing trend in Labrador. If it hasn't stopped raining or the showers haven't stopped, they will. And the system that's bringing showers to the island right now is going to push on out to coastal Labrador and then out to sea. So right now, many places in the island experiencing some light rain or some drizzle here on the east coast. That will end tonight, and behind it, some nice warm weather as we head into the weekend. Let's take a look at the future tracker. You can see those showers sitting across much of the island right now. Coastal Labrador will wave goodbye to that, and that is our nice warm Sunday. We'll talk about, or Friday, excuse me. We'll talk about that a little later in the show.
Well, a very minor change at the pumps this morning. In its weekly adjustment, the PUB barely moved the price of gasoline. It dropped by just 0.1 cents per liter. Diesel is down about 3 cents per liter, while furnace oil is down almost 5 cents. Stove oil took another big jump in Newfoundland overnight. It's up by more than 15 cents a liter. The price has dropped significantly in Labrador, though, by more than 16 cents. Well, for those who make their living on the road, fluctuating gas prices can have a major impact on your bottom line and your budget. Here Now's Garrett Berry took a ride in a big rig to see how the price changes are affecting drivers.
Almost time for another job, but first, fueling up. We caught a ride with Don Howlett, who's been doing this for decades, so there are some things he knows just like the back of his hand.
1,000 liters, 1,200 miles.
But lately, this business has changed dramatically. This cost nearly twice what he paid last year. And get this pump only takes $250 a time. So to fill up this rig, he starts over and over and over. Back at the shop, the numbers are crunched harder than ever, because they might have 25 trucks on the road today.
Have to have your finger on the pulse. I mean, I spend a lot of time in dispatch my own self. I don't think that I could do it just sitting down looking at spreadsheets, because I have to watch every single cost, and every move that we make is where we're making our money right now.
Yes, it's his problem.
I'm probably burning 25,000 litres a day on a good day for running hard.
But make no mistake, it's everyone's now.
Everything that we're doing is getting passed on to consumer. So you can imagine, you know, not just when you go to the grocery store and you fill up that cart and it, you know, costs you an extra, you know, 100 or 200 or 300, depending on your family and your situation for your house. But your car the car that you drive in, your jacket that you're wearing, everything that, you know, that we have in Newfoundland comes by truck.
Let's check one of those trucks. Chris is almost done, and his total, astounding.
There you have $1,860 worth of fuel.
8 transactions, $1,800, all for 2 days of work.
Yeah, now I can go to Port aux Basques and back home. I got enough to get back home again tomorrow.
And what really stings? Since we met, the cost of diesel has dropped 3.3 cents per liter, meaning all of this fuel would have cost about $25 less this evening. Welcome to the new reality, where the costs change every day.
It's a pretty topsy-turvy world when it comes to trucking right now.
Garrett Berry, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Well, if you think you've been paying more at the liquor store lately, you would be right. Earlier this month, the NLC raised its prices by an average of 1.9%. Wine is up by nearly 2.6%, beer nearly 2.5%. So what does that look like? Well, it's an extra 75 cents for a locally made 12-pack of beer. Ready-to-drink beverages are up by more than 1.6%, and spirits nearly 1.5%, so that's an extra 45 cents for a 26er of Lamb's Amber. A spokesperson for the NLC says the change is due to the increased costs of goods for suppliers and rising freight costs due to the increase in fuel. Well, the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary is publicly addressing questions about systemic racism. It's the first time the RNC has spoken about this issue since July, back when Chief Pat Roach said he didn't believe systemic racism is a problem in the police force. RNC leaders met with the St. John's-based Indigenous-led coalition First Voice earlier this week.
We have a colonial background. The systems, institutions that we operate under have that particular background, and we as the RNC recognize that, and we are now focused on and have been focused on continued education for our officers that removes any bias, discrimination from our organization.
Well, it's still not clear what Chief Roach's current view on systemic racism is. He hasn't spoken to the media. When asked, Constable Cadigan couldn't say if Roach will ever publicly answer those questions.
Devoted mental health advocate has engaged with numerous organizations across the country and inspires his audiences to express their stories through song. Your Excellency, Mr. McCann.
Well, the Order of Canada has a new member from Newfoundland and Labrador. Sean McCann, a founding member of Great Big Sea, was lauded today in Ottawa for his work with mental health advocacy, and he wasn't alone. Also getting the award today in Ottawa, Roger Grimes. Grimes is a former premier and president of the Teachers Association. He's also current chair of the CNLOPB. Grimes was praised for being an insightful and effective leader, as well as a, quote, stalwart defender of public governance.
And as these showers move on out to sea, they'll leave behind it a nice, warm, sunny Friday and a lovely weekend. We've got some record-breaking temperatures to tell you about in Labrador, too. Stay tuned.
Time for a look at the weather. And you were saying earlier that some records were broken temperature-wise.
Yeah, in Labrador, it was a really nice day, really nice warm day. Beat some records by almost 2 degrees, over 2 degrees in one case.
Oh, wow.
So let's get to it and tell you all about it. So in Churchill Falls yesterday, we had a temperature of 10.7 degrees, and that smashed the old record of 8.4, and that one was set in 2011. Now in Cartwright, it was 16 degrees, so quite a warm day there, and that beat your previous record of 14.2, and that one was set in 2005, so that one by almost 2 degrees, 1.8 to be exact. Now, let's take a look at today's highs. They weren't that warm in Labrador. We started with 8 in Labrador City. Getting into the double digits for most of Labrador except for Nain. It was 9 there. 12 from Churchill Falls to Hopedale. 18 today in Happy Valley Goose Bay, so that's a really warm day there as well. These are way above seasonal. We've talked about that before. And going on down into the Northern Peninsula, 13 degrees, warm day for Corner Brook as well, but a little cooler as we got down to the southwest coast, but into the mid-teens for the Avalon and central parts of Newfoundland. Now, let's move on into tonight. Currently, we're seeing some of those showers clear out here in Labrador, but behind it, we've got some scattered showers and a mix of snow possible here that'll move over Labrador after this clearing happens. It's already starting to clear out here along the southwest coast as the system is going to move across the island into the early morning hours. Things should be pretty clear by then, and then it'll continue to push on, giving us a decent day on Friday as we all get to enjoy our weekend. Now, tonight, let's take a look at St. John's. It's going to be 11 degrees. We'll get 5 millimeters of rain in the northeast Avalon part, on the northern part of the Avalon. As we get down to the southern Avalon, we'll get 5 to 10 millimeters because we're going to have some showers tonight. Currently experiencing drizzle in much of the Avalon. As we round down to Marystown on the Burin Peninsula, it's going to be 3 degrees but feel like 8 in some other parts of the Burin Peninsula. You'll also see 5 to 10 millimeters of precipitation accumulate in your area. Heading along the coast here to the southwest coast, you're already seeing that clearing like what we just saw on the future tracker. 8 degrees there tonight, up to the northern, the west coast, excuse me, feeling more like 4 degrees. Now the wind gusting to 40 there, on the east coast gusting to 60. So it's going to be a bit of a windy night for many places. Chance of showers, then clearing into central. We'll have showers ending tonight in the Straits and on the northern peninsula as well, also clearing there. In Cartwright, along the coast in Labrador, also going to be a windy night for you folks, gusting to 50. But we've got a decent night here in central Labrador and up to Nain, 4 or 5 degrees, clear skies with some clouds for you folks. But in Labrador City, 1 degree, chilly night yet again. You could have some flurries, that could be some rain, depending on how things shake down with your temperatures. All right, there you go. In the early morning hours on Friday, all that rain has moved out to sea, and what we see is some cloud moving across the island, a few scattered showers for the west coast up into the northern peninsula and across Labrador. Could be flurries, could be a mix for you if you are in Labrador, as that pushes on through until this time tomorrow. And into Saturday, looking like a nice day. All right, for tomorrow, it looks like we're going to have a pretty decent day here on the East Coast, 14, 15 degrees, depending on where you are. It's going to be a mix of sun and cloud for us tomorrow after everything clears off. Into central Newfoundland now. Nice day here as well, 14, 15 degrees for you guys. It's going to be mainly sunny, but we'll have more clouds move on in the afternoon, like we just saw there on the future tracker. Getting over to the west coast, temperatures drop off just a little bit for the southwest coast and the west coast on up to the northern peninsula, getting a little cooler. You're going to have some showers to contend with in the afternoon. And here in Labrador, we will have some showers as well, some scattered showers for you folks. It could be a mix in Churchill Falls when you reach your daytime high of 5, and you could see a mix here in Labrador City as well. Looking like a decent day with some sun and cloud, though in Nain, winds gusting to 50 all throughout Labrador. Take a look at your long range in a little while.
Thanks so much, Heather. Well, the 33rd annual St. John's International Women's Film Festival is running until Sunday, and one of the films screening this weekend is by Andy Bowman. Now, you might recognize her as a regular contributor to CBC Newfoundland and Labrador and Here and Now. Our Ife Alaba caught up with Andy on the red carpet last night to learn more about her film, Dead Wife Club.
Here with me we have chef, writer, and more, Andy Bowman. She is the writer of Dead Wives Club, which is actually premiering at the St. John's International Women's Film Festival on Saturday. How are you?
I'm really excited to be here. I actually catered this event for about 5 years, so this is my first time getting to enjoy the free glasses of wine and someone else's cooking, so I'm thrilled, and it's just a dream come true to have the film on the big screen. It's been wonderful.
That's so exciting to be on the other side of it. Tell us about the making of your film and what it took to get here today.
Yeah, I got the idea years ago during a nickel 48-hour screenwriting challenge, and I got the idea from a friend of mine who had gone through a tragedy and he had trouble finding other males who were grieving. He had trouble finding his brothers in grief. So I kind of made what I think would be like the perfect sort of grieving circle. Then I sort of started eyeballing people I wanted to work with. I wanted Shara to direct it, Shara Desiree King. I asked Andy Jones to be in it, and he miraculously said yes. And then Huxley Workman did the music, and that was insane. We just wrote him and said, Mr. Workman, would you consider possibly doing the music? And he wrote back and said, send me the script. And he did it for like $1,000. Yeah, it was so nothing, peanuts, because that's what we had to give him. So it's been really awesome. It's a dark comedy. It's super, super funny and sad, I think anyway. Watching it now, I'm like, I see all the things I would have fixed. Yeah, but I'm pretty happy with it.
Well, I'm sure the audience will notice and they're going to have a blast. Is there anything that you're wanting them to take away from watching this film?
Yeah, I think what the takeaway is, a lot of our crew were women, which we were really, really excited about. Our grip, our electric, we really focused on hiring different people for different positions. It was a priority for us. We had a new DP who had never DP'd a picture start before, Rodrigo Iniguez. We were really happy with our crew, and so it was just really fun. So if you're making a movie, hire people who are fun because it's long days. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm so excited for people to see it and to see all your hard work, and great job on everything you've been doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
If you're from Labrador and you're in the audience and you're listening to an ode to Newfoundland, you may not feel that same source of pride and inclusion.
Memorial University has ditched the Ode to Newfoundland at convocation ceremonies. More from the university coming up.
We're here at Memorial University today, a very happy day for 1,000 students of convocation, always an exciting time, all that work put into university. But something was different about convocation today, and joining me now to talk about that is Lisa Brown. She is a Vice President for Advancement and External Relations. So how was convocation?
Excellent. It's my favorite day of the year, actually. It's such an exciting time to watch the students have such joy and pleasure and maybe relief as they cross the stage. So I love it.
Now, one thing that was different about convocation this year is Memorial University has made the decision not to have the ode as part of the ceremony. Can you tell me about that decision?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of things that are different about convocation. So we're trying to make it a more student-focused experience, more accessible and more inclusive for everyone. And so you'll see now people are clapping between the name of each student as they cross the stage. And we did decide to not sing the Ode to Newfoundland. And so it is the Ode to Newfoundland. We are the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we're Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So it's because it excludes Labrador, that's the main reason?
Yeah, so it's, if you're from Labrador and you're in the audience and you're listening to an Ode to Newfoundland, you may not feel that same source of pride and inclusion. And so our efforts are really, one of our values is actually inclusion and equity, and we're working towards that. And so this was one step. And it's all, I would say, within the whole decision about making convocation to be more student focused, more joyous. We're having, for example, we had throat singing, for example, this morning. We're doing opera singer this afternoon who's singing a Queen song. So there's lots of changes to convocation. We started convocation in 1950, and it changes as we go along.
But with respect to Labrador, I think there is actually an ode to Labrador, right? So why wouldn't you just have the ode to Newfoundland and the ode to Labrador and maybe mix them into 6 or 7 verses?
There could be any number of solutions to those sorts of things. I mean, I think the point is to be accessible and inclusive for all. Whether we want to have any sort of provincial ode is something we can talk about, but right now we've decided that the Ode to Newfoundland won't be part of the program.
So was it, where once our fathers stood we stand and all of the other parts of the ode, was that deemed not to be inclusive as well?
I think you could make that point for sure. It's focused on faith, for example. It's focused on one part of the province, and so why upset people within the audience when you want something to be fun and joyous for people?
You mentioned faith, so is that the God guard thee parts?
Yeah, that could be considered that, yeah.
A lot of people, you grew up singing the ode, didn't you?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I mean, as many people did.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate some kind of reaction to this? Because this is Memorial University, right?
Yeah.
And essentially founded in commemoration of a lot of white men who fought in a colonial war. I mean, how far do you take this?
I think you take it as far as you can, actually, because our values are equity and inclusion. We have a VP Indigenous, we have a strategic framework for Indigenous, and so we're trying to make those strides. It is one small step at a time, and so I think it's another one of those decisions that we've made, and it's looking at convocation from its entirety and celebration and making it the right sort of feel for all of our 1,000 students for today who cross the stage.
So where did this decision originate? Is this from the President's office? Was there a committee? I mean, how was this decided? Because I can't imagine people said, okay, we're just not going to use the ode this year. There must have been some discussion or deliberation by somebody, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was a decision made at the President's advisory team, which consists of the President and the Vice Presidents.
So how many people are on that committee? Roughly?
8.
8? Okay. So you were part of those deliberations? Yeah. Was there a turning point? Was it unanimous?
It was, yeah.
It was unanimous?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What do you think the reaction is going to be to this?
I think, like anything, people have a lot of sense of pride of the ode for some people. Some people do not. I think it will be mixed, probably. Some people will think that it's a positive step forward. Some people will be initially disappointed. But I think if you're looking at the fact that we are Memorial University of Newfoundland and Labrador with a special obligation to the people of this province, then to exclude people from Labrador is problematic.
But there's all kinds of paradoxes in this, don't you think? Because it's Memorial University, and you're going to get rid of the ode. It seems as though the university has a whole heritage side to it. So how do you balance what would appeal to traditionalists and to people who are more modern who think we need to make these changes, because you can't please everybody.
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it. We're trying to marry the pomp and circumstances with the change that you see in the world. And you know, it's interesting that our new Chancellor, Earl Ludlow, today talked a lot about change. And I think this is a small example of change within convocation. So, you know, we have lots of parts of tradition. The shape of the podium, for example, is in the shape of a ship. And so there are like sometimes entertainment, folk songs. So there are ways to bring in that tradition that is inclusive and accessible for all.
Well, ever since Mary Brown's took over the former Mile 1 Center, people have pointed out that you can't actually order Mary Brown's at the Mary Brown Center. Well, that all changed today. Visitors can now purchase the popular fast food. A restaurant has opened along the concourse just in time for the start of hockey season.
Hi, I'm Katie Jackson, and we're looking for Black changemakers in Atlantic Canada. This CBC series recognizes Black people creating positive change, inspiring others, and helping shape our future. Nominate someone today.
A doctor specializing in chronic pain says the province needs to change the way we treat opioid addiction, and that change starts with the health minister. Opioid use was the call-in topic yesterday on CBC Radio's Crosstalk. Host Adam Walsh was joined in studio by 3 experts who discussed prescriptions and pain management, the national opioid crisis, and stigma.
There's such a misconception of who dies from opioids. It's everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody is dying. It's not, you conjure up an image of your head of who you think has substance use disorder. You can let that go because it's your mom, it's your dad, it's your nan, it's your pop, it's your cousin, it's your friend, it's everybody. These are our neighbors, these are our friends who are passing away.
Yep. So true.
The issue here in our province that I think we need to address is in the healthcare system is to stop labeling people as drug seekers. If you come through the door to receive help, we're all drug seekers because I'm coming in and be like, I need this or you need this.
That's why we go to the doctor.
That's why you're receiving care.
That's why.
And it has to start at the top. It has to start
Absolutely.
right at the top, and it has to filter down. And we can't be pointing and saying that nurse is at fault because the nurse is not at fault. It's the person who's running the organization who is at fault. If they take the lead and they say, this is what we're going to do, if our Minister of Health takes the lead and says, we're going to stamp out this, then it will be stamped out.
Like, what would you like to see for these steps? Because it's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, like, we're making change. We're coming out, we're saying, we're going to fight stigma, and we're making some of the changes that you're alluding to.
Understand, it's people's rights to use the drug, right?
Yeah.
It may be illegal and you may get arrested for it, but it's their right to use it. So we have to be able to support the rights.
So it's culture change.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people are dying from drug-related complications as well as overdoses because the last place they're going is the emergency room. Yeah. They would rather be alone than be shamed, blamed, ridiculed, made fun of.
And they are.
Absolutely. And stigma and the discrimination as a result of that stigma are, one of the biggest challenges, factors.
And people have this misconception that this is a personal failure. This is not a personal failure because if you have a substance use disorder, you are going to do things to relieve that awful, awful feeling of withdrawal. God love the RNC and the RCMP when they post a picture of someone who's stolen groceries and you think to yourself, no one wants to do that. They are in a desperate situation to be putting themselves in that situation, breaking into someone's home. It's not fun to be the person on the receiving end, but we have to take accountability for the fact that people are in these positions as a result of our healthcare system. This is not a personal failure on their part. Yes, we all take responsibility for making changes in our lives and improving, and that person can be receiving care, can be asking for help. But if they're coming to get help and they're being told, you're actually clogging up our healthcare system, you are the problem.
No, I'm not going to treat your addiction, but I'll treat your psychiatric illness, but I'm not going to treat your addiction.
The inquiry into 2020's mass shooting in Nova Scotia, a weekend of horror that left 22 people dead, is not set to present its findings until March. But already there's criticism of how the inquiry was conducted, and that criticism is mounting. The CBC's Angela McIver reports.
Since the beginning, this public inquiry carried a heavy weight. On the heels of the worst mass shooting in modern Canadian history, involving several rural communities and the federal police force, the public demanded answers. So did many of the families who lost loved ones. They pushed for an independent inquiry rather than a review, and they won. It came with a broad mandate that included instructions to take a trauma-informed approach. But after 7 months of public hearings, some families say that approach backfired. Charlene Bagley lost her father, Tom. She says, if anything, the commission has furthered her trauma.
I feel like the decisions that were made for us were as if we were children and not adults. And personally, that's not for them to decide.
Ed Ratushny has worked with inquiries once as a commissioner, a few other times as counsel. He believes it's a big problem that families of the victims are left feeling this way, and even goes as far to say this inquiry has set a precedent for what not to do.
It just seems like some academic wonderland or something where people are going through all these things and they forget that there's a reality going on out there.
His biggest concern is how some witnesses were allowed to testify without being cross-examined. For instance, a few RCMP members, along with the gunman's spouse, Lisa Banfield. Ratushny believes important information was likely never uncovered because family lawyers weren't allowed to directly ask questions. But the commission stands by its work.
I think in terms of what we've learned, I think we've seen that responding to individuals differently and not having a one-size-fits-all approach is correct.
Nick Beaton lost his pregnant wife, Kristen, in the shooting. He wanted to see more people testify, but says there's still a chance the commission can gain some respect back in their final report.
There's hope. That's all we've had is hope.
The inquiry is now expected to cost at least $47 million, with the bill being split between the province of Nova Scotia and the federal government. As for that final report, it's due at the end of March. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
Embattled British Prime Minister Liz Truss has resigned 45 days after assuming the post. It makes her Britain's shortest-serving Prime Minister and the third since 2019. And that has all of Britain wondering who and what is on the horizon. The CBC's Abby Kuathasan reports.
She said she was a fighter, not a quitter, but that was yesterday. Today, Liz Truss made another U-turn.
Given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
The Conservatives say they'll select a new leader and a new Prime Minister within the week, but a party divided, they can't agree on a successor. The 1922 committee is made up of Tory backbenchers. Its chairman, Graham Brady, says party members will likely be included in the process. MPs may create a shortlist, leaving it to members to choose a winner.
I think we're deeply conscious of the imperative in the national interest of resolving this clearly and quickly.
Some want Rishi Sunak to move into number 10. He finished second in the previous leadership contest. Others are calling to turn back the clock and bring back Boris Johnson. He was the last Conservative leader elected by the British public in 2019. There are reports both will throw their hats into the ring. The opposition leader, Keir Starmer, says no Tory can fix the damage done by this government. He's demanding an immediate general election.
We can't have a revolving door of chaos. We can't have another experiment at the top of the Tory party. There is an alternative, and that's a stable Labour government. And the public are entitled to have their say, and that's why there should be a general election.
Polls show Labour would demolish the Conservatives if there was a vote, but the next general election is not planned until 2024, a lifetime in British politics. Abby Kuathasan, CBC News, London.
Canadian musician Jacob Hogard has been given a 5-year prison sentence today. In June, a Toronto jury found him guilty of sexual assault causing bodily harm. Hogard, who was the former lead singer for the rock band Headley, was in court today with his wife. The conviction is related to an incident in a Toronto hotel in 2016 when he raped a woman in her early 20s. The judge said today the victim is no longer the same person she was before the attack, adding that the woman was physically hurt, but far more significant was the psychological hurt. Hogard is now in custody. The judge is still trying to decide whether or not he'll get bail pending appeal. There's more news on our website and on CBC Radio. Tomorrow on the St. John's Morning Show, tune in to hear about a group starting a prison pen pal program for people incarcerated in this province. You want to own a Lamborghini? Well, you'll need about $600,000. Sound like too much? Don't let go of that dream just yet. Yes, this replica has the exact dimensions as a real Lambo FKP 37, and it's made up of 400,000 Lego pieces and weighs about 2 tons. But like some of the flashy things in life, the Lego supercar is more form than function, and while it may appeal to the budget-conscious buyer, this ride isn't meant to be taken for a spin, but visitors to the Paris Auto Show can use a touchscreen to trigger the sound of the engine and control the lighting. That is pretty neat.
I'm looking for a new car. I don't think it'll be that one.
Yeah. Doesn't look like you can actually take that one out.
Can't drive that one.
All right, so let's have a look at the long-range forecast. We're getting into the weekend. I'm excited by this forecast for this weekend.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great weekend to get out, go for a hike.
Beautiful weekend ahead.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Really warm. Let's get to it because it's going to be above average, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. So here we go. We see a clearing trend on Friday and into Saturday, but some clouds moving back through much of Labrador. So when we take a look at Saturday, look at this. Look at all of that sun. 17 degrees here in St. John's, 14 on the west coast, 12, 13 up into St. Anthony and the Straits. Now, this is much warmer than average. We'll talk a little bit about that. So St. John's, normally our daytime high this time of year is about 10 degrees. So that is, 7 degrees higher than it normally is. Into Gander, Grand Falls is normally 8, 9 degrees this time of year. St. Anthony, normally 6. So for the whole entire island, it is like 6 to 7 degrees warmer than normal on Saturday than it should be for this time of year. Looking into Labrador now, our normal average daytime high for Happy Valley Goose Bay is about 6 degrees, and it's about 1 for Labrador City. So we're like 7, 8 degrees in Labrador, warmer than what we should be. So we get a little bit of a mix of sun and cloud on Saturday into Cartwright, Nain, Happy Valley Goose Bay, and we're going to pick up some showers in Labrador City, a chance of showers for you folks, so you guys don't have the best day compared to the rest of your friends in the province. Now, looking into Saturday in the overnight, see a few more clouds moving through, some scattered showers through parts of Labrador, and then taking a look at Sunday. Still an absolutely beautiful day, but a little bit more cloud cover for many parts. So we'll have a mix of sun and cloud for most parts of the island. Still warm temperatures, still 17 in St. John's, still 15 into Central, 14 and 12 along the west coast and northern peninsula and into the Straits. Cooling off a little bit as we get into Churchill Falls and Labrador City, Wabush areas again. You guys are going to have a chance of showers again on Sunday, but it's just a chance. So taking a look at our 5-day forecast now, getting into our extended forecast. Look, not a drop of rain in the forecast. Isn't that just lovely? Mix of sun and cloud on Friday, sun on Saturday, mix of sun and cloud on Sunday, Monday, a few more clouds on Tuesday. 17 degrees on both days during the weekends, dropping off a little bit on Monday down to 12, a little closer to our seasonal mark, and 14 on Tuesday was still pretty warm overnight lows. Into central Newfoundland now, again, look, not a drop. 14, 15 degrees, dropping down to 13 on Monday, still quite warm with, for the most part, your overnight lows into the single digits, inching closer to the freezing mark, except for on Tuesday, looking like a decent day there. Now for western Newfoundland, we have a beautiful weekend and early next week ahead for us. Temperatures a touch cooler here, 13, 14, 12, 15, still absolutely lovely though. Now, on up into Labrador. For western Labrador, you've got a fair amount of precipitation there. It's just a chance, though, for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Looks like a mix of sun and cloud, though, for you on Monday. And that chance of showers is back on Tuesday. Your temperature is a little bit more closer to seasonal on Friday, but getting warmer throughout your week now. In eastern, it looks like you're going to have an absolutely lovely week there, too, with a chance of showers starting out on Friday. And there we go. This is our weather photo of the day. This is Coda the dog looking at some dolphins. And Paul Rose took that in the Bay of Exploits.
Great shot. Thank you so much, Paul. Have a great night.